I'm the big boss's personal secretary. The big boss is still stably single, even though he's pushing 30 until his little sister wrote a fanfic post. And suddenly the whole company started spreading rumors about my relationship with with the boss. They've really got the nerve to imagine that. I got so mad I mentioned him in the group chat dizzy. Lightheaded and accidentally typed husband instead of boss. Husband. Say something. The moment those words went out, the chat fell dead silent. Then the big boss slowly, unhurriedly surfaced. Then I'll say a couple of words. Boss Kyle Stevens was in the middle of talking business with a client. On the surface, I listened attentively. In reality, I was quietly slacking off. There was a new notification on the company forum. Out of curiosity, I clicked in to take a look. It was actually a fanfic post. It had only been up for a few minutes, and the reads and likes were already growing exponentially. Looks like plenty of people were slacking off at this hour too. How much charm could a fanfic post possibly have? I glanced at my boss, who was chatting merrily with the client, then clicked into the post and started devouring it like a starving man. Every time there was a client, the big boss would stay in the reception room for hours with his personal male secretary. After the meeting ended, the male secretary would be flushed, legs weak, even walking with his knees bent. And every time that happened, the big boss would take one look at the male secretary's stubborn attempt to act tough, curl his lips slightly, and think to himself, he's so cute. The comments were nothing but horny reaction memes. Someone even wailed, if only we'd met on Haidong. My face filled with question marks. Who is this even about? Why did it feel like I'd seen it somewhere before? I looked at the names of the two leads, Kyle and Andrew Cruz. Holy hell, aren't those the big boss and me? I looked back at the fanfic I'd just read, and all I felt was a chest full of misunderstanding, with nowhere to defend myself. First, the big boss talks to clients for a long time because he's nailing down details. What does that have to do with me? Second, my face is red after meetings because the AC is set to high, and I'm getting stuffy. And also, because I feel guilty for slacking off. My relationship with the big boss is a pure, innocent, superior, subordinate one. Other than money, there's no intersection at all. As for the big boss curling his lips at the male secretary and thinking he's cute, this is completely baseless nonsense. I lifted my head angrily, only to suddenly meet Kyle's dark eyes for some reason. His cold brows and eyes were tinged with the faintest smile, like a spring breeze when you looked at him. Without thinking, I wondered, why does it feel like Kyle really was smiling at me just now? His dark eyes narrowed slightly, and Kyle spoke. What are you spacing out for? The partnership is settled, see the client out. I sprang up in a panic, shut my laptop, and gave the client a perfectly polite smile. Let me walk you out. My face was all smiles inside. I was cursing up a storm. This fanfic post is ruining my life. I almost got caught slacking off right in front of the boss. I'm going to report that post and make it so they've got no sugar left to ship. I politely escorted the client out, then rushed back and clicked into the fanfic post to look at the author. I wanted to see exactly who was bold enough to fantasize about me and the big boss. I had to drag them out into the open, but the author clearly wasn't trying to hide. They were using their real name company account. I took one look at the username Elizabeth Stevens and my vision went black. All the fire in my chest instantly deflated. Damn it. Why is the author the big boss's little sister? I chickened out, but I will watch her forever. Her posting activity, that is, that day at work. With a ding, I got a notification. She'd updated. She was starting rumors about me and the big boss again. Fuming. I clicked in and saw she'd written, have you noticed the male secretary's suits always fit perfectly? So perfectly they trace the outline of his chest, the curve of his ass, even the lines at the top of his thighs. Actually, that's because the big boss specially custom-made these limited edition exclusive secretary suits for the male secretary every time. When the big boss watches the male secretary wearing the clothes he chose, walking back and forth in front of him, his gaze can't help but linger, unwilling to leave. The comment section was on fire, so spicy my brain was practically exploding. That Secretary Cruz figure out, huh? The big boss really eats well every day. The big boss isn't into men or women. Yet he chose Secretary Cruz, so it was a long con from the start. What Secretary Cruz? He's cutie secretary. My brain was spicy, too. Purely because these people piss me off. How dare they imagine whatever they want? Kyle and I are squeaky clean, and I'm a die-hard straight guy. Andrew. Kyle's handsome face suddenly leaned in close. I jolted, screaming in my head, Bobo boss. Kyle frowned slightly, his whole body giving off a don't come near me or silent authority without anger. I called you several times. His face was stern, expression icy. That's more like it. How could the big boss possibly? The next second, the big boss handed me a gift bag. Wear this today. I opened the bag. Inside was a brand new deep cobalt blue suit from a high-end bespoke tailoring house. I used to think this was just an employee perk for being Kyle's secretary. But ever since I read the big boss's sister's fanfic, I can't look at this suit normally anymore. I closed my eyes and tried to hand it back. Boss, I can't accept this without merit. It's so expensive. You should keep it for yourself. A blank, stunned look appeared on Kyle's iceberg face. He hesitated for a moment, then asked instead, "You don't like this color?" Why is he looking at me with that pitiful expression? I'm just refusing a suit, okay? I reflexively explained. It's not that I don't like it. It's just, it's valuable. Kyle blinked, then looked genuinely puzzled. It's only 100,000. What's so valuable about that? Whoosh, it was like a sword named poverty stabbed straight through my chest. I felt deeply wounded. I did my best to maintain my dignity as a secretary, but inside I was already grinding my teeth. My salary is only 20,000 a month. Kyle suddenly understood. So you think your pay is low? No, that's not what I meant. Stupid mouth. Hurry up and talk. Don't get me fired for making the boss angry. He thought for a moment, then sent HR a message. Then I'll raise your pay by 20,000. 40,000 a month, okay? I froze. Then I burst into wild joy. There's actually a deal like this in the world. Kyle looked at me, narrowed his eyes, and a trace of a smile surfaced in his gaze. Now you can change into it, right? I nodded like crazy. Boss, I'm willing to work myself to the bone for you. Die before I ever stop. After I changed, I still felt like something was off. But the double paycheck that was about to hit my account went straight to my head. Wearing the new suit, I walked a circle in front of Kyle. Kyle's gaze roamed over me. Those pitch black eyes were bottomless, holding emotions I couldn't read. Like they turned into a hand, gently peeling off my clothes, touching scorching skin. I shuddered hard. Why would a thought like that even pop into my head? How could Kyle possibly mean that toward me? As if to test something, I lifted my head and looked in Kyle's direction. But Kyle simply handed me a few documents, all business, in 10 minutes. Call the planning team in for a meeting. I let out a breath of relief. See? I knew the big boss wasn't interested in me, right? After I sent the planning team the meeting notice, I sat in the conference room and waited. That was when the big boss's sister suddenly updated again. New update. The big boss suddenly gave Secretary Cruz a raise. Secretary Cruz has been neither outstanding nor terrible these past 2 years, and he doesn't even have performance pressure. There's only one reason for a sudden raise: pillow talk. I'm betting the big boss and Secretary Cruz unlocked a new map today. His office. I really hate that I was born with eyes, forced to see something this searingly spicy. In the comments, someone questioned the fanfic's evidence. I see Secretary Cruz and the boss acting totally proper. In front of others, they always keep their distance. You didn't see it with your own eyes, so how can you say they did that? When I saw that comment, I almost teared up. So there are still normal people in this company. As meeting time approached, the planning team filed in one after another. The comment section, and I fell silent for a moment, but halfway through the meeting, the comment section suddenly exploded into a heated debate. It's not a rumor. I was there on site. I noticed Secretary Cruz was wearing something completely different from what he came to work in. And this set is even more form-fitting. It's really hard not to associate that with what he and the boss were just doing in the office. Slander. This is pure, unadulterated slander. My eyes went red with anger. I heard someone calling me, and I snapped my head up only to meet Kyle's gaze head-on. Kyle had been frowning at first, looking a bit displeased, but when he saw my reddened eyes, his expression loosened. He sighed. It's fine, we'll end today's meeting here. If anything comes up later, follow up with me. Kyle stood up. Secretary Cruz, come here. Clutching the documents, I followed behind Kyle. Feeling the room's scorching stares on my back, misery flooded my heart. It's such a tiny thing, who knows how they're going to spin it now. Kyle wasn't walking fast up ahead. Even at my slow, dragging pace, I could keep up. All of a sudden, he stopped. I slammed straight into his back, covering the bridge of my nose where it hurt. I apologized in a panic. Sorry, boss. I didn't mean to. Kyle turned around slowly. I thought he was going to scold me for spacing out, so I lowered my head and stared at my toes instead. A warm hand pressed against my forehead. Kyle said softly, if you're sick, you can take leave. Don't push yourself. In that instant, I was so moved I didn't even know what to do with myself. See, the big boss is so good to me. How could they bear to spread rumors about me and him? Me and the boss are obviously a clean, innocent employment relationship, Elizabeth posted. Secretary Cruz, that stupid straight guy, my guess is the big boss is already in. And he's still wondering if the big boss just came in to warm up. I stared at that line, not understanding what she meant and where. I finally dragged myself to the end of the workday. I sprang up from my chair, ready to go home and lie down like a corpse, but the moment I stepped forward, a long leg blocked my way. Kyle braced one hand on my desk and leaned toward me, close enough that I could even hear his breathing, still feeling unwell. My heart jumped twice without permission. I forced out a smile. Boss, I'm fine. Hearing that, Kyle's lips curved slightly. Then let's go. I was completely at a loss. Go where? The driver took us straight to the entrance of a 5-star hotel. I stared, uncertain and alarmed. He brought me to a hotel. Don't tell me he wants to do this, and that with me. He stepped inside. I panicked like crazy and blurted, Boss, I can't. I'm straight. Kyle's footsteps stopped for some reason. It felt like his fairly pleasant mood turned cold in an instant, sinking straight to the bottom. Secretary Cruz, we're going to the banquet hall on the 8th floor. So, he bought me new clothes because he was taking me to a banquet. That's normal. That's what makes sense, but for some reason, there was a faint trace of disappointment in my chest. I shook off the inappropriate thoughts in my head and tried hard to listen to Kyle's instructions. Kyle brought me to the banquet hall with 2 requirements. First, carry his bag. Second, block his peach blossoms. Today, I really got to see just how in demand Kyle was. Those women's mothers, the moment they saw Kyle, were like starving wolves in the jungle spotting meat, practically itching to pounce onto him. Well, sure. A CEO worth hundreds of billions, tall with long legs, handsome, who wouldn't want to bring him home as a son-in-law? Secretary Cruz, I'm counting on you. I gave a stiff, fake smile, and no trouble at all. Kyle socialized. I blocked his future mothers-in-law. Kyle chatted and laughed. I blocked his future mothers-in-law. This is not a job for humans. Suddenly, a champagne flute appeared in front of me. A young woman, pretty, flirtatious, looked at me with a smile. Secretary Cruz, I'd like to exchange business cards with President Stevens. I've been making up all sorts of nonsense like the CEO has issues. The CEO is focused on his career. Even the CEO has a white moonlight who died 10 years ago. So, when she asked to exchange cards, my brain short-circuited. For a second, the fanfic content surged in my mind, and I blurted out, sorry, President Stevens' private contact info can't be given out, because I'm his white moonlight who died 10 years ago. So the president has a sickness, and the president only wants to focus on his career right now. The woman, 3 seconds later, she had an epiphany. So you mean you two are a couple now? I nodded numbly. Yes, no, a couple. Who are a couple? My brain finally began to grind into motion. Oh no. That's not what I meant. The woman gave me a meaningful look, then glanced behind me. Oh, so that's the kind of relationship you'd have for no reason. I felt a powerful X-ray beam at my back, piercing straight through my organs. Secretary Cruz, the moment that familiar voice sounded, cold sweat poured out of me. I wanted to cry, but had no tears. As I turned my head like a zombie, I reached out like irking. Boss, listen, let me explain. To my surprise, Kyle didn't seem angry. He lifted a hand and patted my shoulder, looking thoughtful. I heard him sigh in admiration. So there's a method like that, huh? Why do I suddenly have a bad feeling about this? And so, in addition to being Kyle's secretary, I gained an extra job locking his peach blossoms. Kyle took me out to eat and drink after work almost every day. Or to stroll through some romantic scenic spot. He said it was for work. If he was in a bad mood, it would affect his work. And life, too, was part of work. I had no way to refute him. Anyway, what I had to do was, if someone came over asking Kyle for his contact info, I had to refuse with righteous severity and add one sentence. Sorry, he's my boyfriend. Every time I said that, I noticed Kyle's mood would become especially good. At times like that, no matter what I asked him for, Kyle would grant it. The most outrageous time was when we went to a car show. I saw a car in the brochure and praised it a couple of times. Kyle lifted his brows at me. You like it? He took out his card and said one word to the salesperson. Bye. I hurriedly dragged him away. Boss, be rational. How did I never realize Kyle was this impulsive before? That day, Kyle went to a cocktail party. As usual, I waited at the entrance. A wave of perfume drifted past. I looked up and found someone slipping a card into my collar. It was a business card. Its owner was a woman dripping with allure, her final syllables lifted high, her breath like orchids. Secretary Cruz, this is my contact information. Reflexively, I rejected her on the boss's behalf. Our President Stevens doesn't like women. He and I The woman raised a finger to stop me. Who wants to talk about that ice face? I want your contact info. Little secretary, are you giving it or not? My brain crashed. The boss only said I wasn't allowed to hand out his private contact info. He never said mine couldn't be given to others. I had just taken out my phone and typed the first 2 digits when a large hand covered mine. I heard Kyle's low voice. He's mine. The moment those words landed, my heartbeat skipped. The woman laughed so hard she trembled. President Stevens, your little secretary is obviously a straight guy. No matter how you train him, he won't change. Why don't you just give him to me, for the first time? Kyle showed someone a clear expression of irritation. My business isn't for you to meddle in. Kyle pulled me into the banquet hall. Even though he didn't say anything, I could clearly feel that he was angry for some reason. I had this inexplicable guilt like I'd been caught red-handed by a boyfriend. But aren't the big boss and I both straight? What am I feeling guilty for? Still, to keep my job, I obediently admitted fault. I'm sorry, boss. I shouldn't have added her. Kyle turned sharply with his body and arm. He pinned me between himself and the wall. The corners of his eyes were faintly red, and he looked, for no reason, a little fragile. Why didn't you refuse directly? Do you like her? I shook my head again and again. No, I didn't. But just as I was about to explain seriously, Kyle gave a self-mocking smile, right? You're straight, of course you like women. I was a mess. What does he mean by that? Before I could figure out what was wrong with Kyle, Kyle got drunk. Someone was still trying to push alcohol on him. In a moment of impulsiveness, I refused for him. Boss can't drink anymore. I'll do it. I downed a glass in one go, propped Kyle up, and left. Sorry, our boss's curfew is here. I need to take him back. A bunch of people looked baffled. Curfew? Since when did President Stevens have to obey a curfew? I lifted my lips in a cold smile, because I set it for him, lately. I've been going in and out of Kyle's place a lot. This time, I directly called a designated driver to take him home. Password, bedroom, all in one smooth flow. But when I had taken off his shoes and coat, and was about to take off his pants, something fell off. I snapped my head up and met Kyle's eyes, glossy with moisture. I explained, boss. I'll undo your belt, and then I'll go. Kyle parted his heat-filled lips. Undo one more layer is fine, too. I hadn't even processed what he meant, when a large hand slid along the hollow at my waist and slipped into the suit pants Kyle had just bought for me. Trial read cutoff line has slipped out of view. Trial read word count, 5,121 words. About 30% of the total. Total word count, 16,671. I jolted in shock. That warm fingertip pressed against the skin. Behind my hips, I could even sensitively feel the thin calluses on his fingers. I couldn't move like a piece of wood. My face burned red as I hurriedly grabbed his hand to stop it. Boss, stop. I'm not one of the women you brought back from the banquet. I'm just a secretary. How did I end up with after-sales service, too? Kyle lifted his thumb and gently rubbed the web between my thumb and index finger, sending goosebumps over my whole body. He lowered his head and pressed a kiss to the back of my hand. In those deep black eyes, I saw my own reflection in the light. Of course you're not anyone else. You're Secretary Cruz. He frowned, as if dissatisfied with what I'd said. How could I possibly mistake Secretary Cruz? From the very first time I saw Secretary Cruz, I was drawn to you, in the beginning. You were green and sincere. You never bowed your head when you ran into trouble. Every time I met you, I felt so clearly that you were different back then. You applied for a design position, but I just couldn't help myself. I wanted to transfer you to my side, to keep you within sight at all times later. You gradually became capable enough to stand on your own. Yet that heart of yours stayed just as earnest and adorable. My eyes have never once left you. His voice was steeped in a heavy drunkenness, that inexplicably dependent closeness, that low, intimate tone. It was as if it intoxicated me, too. For a moment, I forgot to pull my hand back, so Kyle's hand crept in, inch by inch, threading into my fingers. Secretary Cruz, in my dream today feels so real. Secretary Cruz, why aren't you kissing me today? Kyle toyed with my hand and glanced at me, his eyes shimmering with tears. I was a beat too slow. Kyle had already cupped the back of my head, pressed his lips to mine, and kissed me. By the time I reacted, he had me pinned beneath him. My face went red all the way to my neck. I was so flustered I could barely breathe, panting again and again. Boss, I'm a man. How can to men? Kyle was drunk, but his strength was absurd. He braced his knee against one of my legs, stripping away my leverage. My legs went weak, and I couldn't get up otherwise. I'd have made Kyle pay. No question. Why can't to men? Kyle licked my fingertip and sealed my ignorance with a scorching kiss. I'll teach you. Kyle taught me for an entire night. I don't know when I finally fell asleep. When I woke up, I found myself held in Kyle's arms in an absurd, awkward position. I pinched myself hard, it hurt. So this wasn't a dream? Last night, I actually spent the whole night with the big boss to grown men. And the worst part was, not only did I feel no discomfort, there was even a little bit of enjoyment. I'm done for. I burrowed under the covers, fished my clothes out from beneath Kyle, threw them on in a blind panic, slid into my shoes, and fled like my life depended on it. Then I suddenly felt, for no reason, like there was a draft down there, wrong size. Oh, I think I put on the wrong underwear. No time to go back and change. I had to clock into the company. All for the perfect attendance bonus. After I clocked in, I tried to slip out and go to the mall to buy a pair that actually fit. I turned around and promptly crashed into a solid chest. The familiar woody scent hit me, and my legs clenched instinctively. Boss, good morning. Kyle was so dead drunk last night, he was basically unconscious. He shouldn't remember doing this, and that with me, right? When I greeted him, Kyle frowned slightly, like he wasn't happy. Secretary Cruz. Yesterday I was the one who took you home, boss. You didn't feel uncomfortable, did you? After all, he'd even fastened his suit and tie backward. How rushed do you have to be to fasten it backward? It's not like he was chasing down a runaway little wife. Kyle pressed his lips together. I'm fine. Then, after a pause, though, actually, I'm not entirely fine. What's not fine? I blurted, and a weird impulse rose up like I wanted to check on him. I think I might have been infected by the fanfic post. Kyle softened his tone. He sounded almost pitiful. My family wants me to go back for a blind date. So, what does that have to do with me? I want you to pretend to be my lover and come home with me to meet my parents. I pointed at myself. Me. Boss, are you sure you mean me? Kyle's reason was, you use that excuse all the time and it works great. Even if it doesn't succeed this time, it'll still help me fend off the blind date. But this time, for some reason, I didn't really want to agree. It's not real. Isn't it bad to keep lying like this? Actually, hourly rate, 1,000 per hour. Me, deal. That was reckless. Money blinded me. And then, when we really arrived at his family's front door, I chickened out. Is every ugly bride meeting the in-laws naturally suppressed? Even if I'm a fake one. Just as I was thinking, Kyle took my hand. His fingers were long, his palm broad so big it almost swallowed mine. I felt awkward. Boss, do we really need to do this? Kyle drew out his words lazily. What did you call me? I froze. What am I supposed to call you? He swung our joined hands. What do couples call each other? That's what you should call me. I racked my brain. Husband. A flicker of surprise passed through Kyle's eyes. Like he hadn't expected me to say that. But he adapted quickly then. Started making demands. Say it together. My toes curled into the floor. My voice was as small as a mosquito. Husband. His hand tightened around mine without thinking. His thumb behaving badly as it stroked over my fingers. Kyle led me to the door and knocked. I took a deep breath, gathered all my courage, shut my eyes, and shouted, Dad, Mom. I even clung to Kyle's arm and urged him in an affected, saccharine tone, Husband, hurry up, say something. Kyle smiled as he introduced me to his family. Dad, Mom, this is my boyfriend, Andrew. You should have met him before. He's my personal secretary. Kyle had told me his parents liked reserved types, and that I should be more outgoing so they'd find it annoying, raising the chances of success. For a long while, there was no reaction at all. When I opened my eyes, I saw Kyle's father's newspaper sliding from his hand, Kyle's mother spilling water as she poured, and Kyle's sister, Elizabeth, her sheet mask literally falling off her face. I scratched my head. Was I a bit too much? Were they going to kick me out on the spot? But after the silence, Kyle's mother took the initiative to invite us in. Andrew, is it? Come in. Come and sit down. Kyle's mother was very polite. I just didn't know why her face turned red the moment she looked at me. Kyle's father held it in for ages. Forget calling me some kind of slur. He practically tucked his tail and fled. Like I was the plague. When Kyle's mother looked at me, she didn't know where to put her hands or feet. Like I was the host and she was the guest. After a while, she finally forced out an excuse to leave. What would you like to eat? I'll make it for you. She looked so eager that I casually said, Soup dumplings, wonderful. I'll make them right away. She left, oddly delighted. I stood there completely bewildered. In this house, who exactly is the one in charge? Just then, Elizabeth quietly dragged the big boss away with a twisted face, clenched teeth, and a stomp of her foot. She demanded of Kyle, Bro, is the company not enough for you and Secretary Cruz anymore? You had to bring Secretary Cruz home. What? You want our whole family to become part of your play? Elizabeth wasn't loud, but she wasn't quiet either, just enough for me to hear. I was stunned. Kyle, apparently, was just as lost. What are you talking about? What fanfic post? Elizabeth could barely look at us anymore. Mom and Dad are both fans of my fanfic. Stop pretending. Damn it. No wonder Uncle and Annie looked at me so strangely earlier. They actually thought Kyle and I were the doy maniacs. From that post, never resting except to drink water and eat. No end to the exercise as long as life continues. Oh, heavens, now I could jump into the Yellow River and still never wash this clean. I was alive, but already dead. What remained was only a numb shell. Kyle held my hand, I felt nothing. Kyle wrapped an arm around my waist, I felt nothing. Kyle kissed my cheek, I felt. Why is he kissing me? We're at the dinner table. Maybe the accusation in my eyes was too obvious. Kyle pinched my cheek and explained. If my family thinks it's too corny, they might start disliking me. That increases the success rate, so Kyle really was just using me as a shield. I made a no sound. Face blank and started nitpicking with relish. Husband, peel the shrimp for me. Not a single bit of shell left. Husband, there's too much meat today. I like a balance of meat and vegetables. Husband, this dish is too salty. Tell the nanny to use less salt next time. Kyle agreed to everything, noted. But strangely, Kyle's family didn't seem to find us corny at all. Especially Annie and Elizabeth. They kept sneaking looks at us while trying their best to minimize their presence. Kyle coughed twice. Per our agreement, he used the next move, planning to make Uncle and Annie dislike him. I want to have Secretary Cruz stay the night today. Annie looked like she wanted to bury her head in her bowl. Don't look at me. I'm just an invisible person. As for Kyle's father, he silently lifted his newspaper to block his own face. The guest room bed had been newly changed. I went numb. How can they ship me and Kyle as a couple? This makes no sense. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. I even deliberately checked whether the bed was as sturdy as the rumors claimed. And then my head was full of Kyle and that day. I couldn't sleep. So in the middle of the night, I went out to pour myself some water. And I ended up face to face with Kyle in the living room. Boss, you can't sleep either. What a coincidence. Kyle poured me a glass of water and suggested, how about we go play at the archery range? Isn't an archery range really far? Kyle's gaze dropped to my lips, which were still glistening with water. Not far. It's in the basement. I thought a basement was just a basement. But when I saw the endless expanse of sports equipment, everything you could possibly want, I honestly thought I'd walked into a private athletic club. Rich people are truly something else. Kyle took a bow down from the wall and taught me how to draw and shoot. Drawing a bow requires leverage and proper posture, so Kyle steadied my elbow from behind. His chest pressed to my back. His burning breath spilled over the nape of my neck and the side of my ear. The clothes Kyle bought me were already snug and form-fitting. The closer he leaned in, the more intimately I came into contact with the fabric. My first 2 arrows went wide, only the third finally hit the target, so that's how it works. I turned my head, wanting to thank Kyle. I didn't expect he'd been resting his chin lightly on my right shoulder the whole time. My lips brushed his so light it was like a dragonfly skimming water, almost imperceptible. It was such a faint touch, yet I felt like I'd fallen into a pot of boiling oil. My whole body igniting. Instinctively, I took a step back, trying to put distance between us, only I didn't know when Kyle had already looped an arm around my waist. He leaned in, pinning me to the wall. What are you dodging for? Aren't you straight? Yeah. Aren't I fucking straight? Then why was my first reaction? He wants to kiss me. I feel like I'm not that straight anymore. I tried to avoid Kyle, but my back made him to make contact with the wall, leaving me no choice but to face him head on. Kyle was taller than me. He lowered his head, angling perfectly toward my mouth, inching closer and closer while my brain went completely blank. To protect the dignity of a straight guy, I should have dodged, but I couldn't seem to control my body. I could only watch helplessly as Kyle's lips grazed mine, the heat of his breath hooking at my ear. He didn't kiss me. Instead, he moved in with zero distance, lips near my right ear, and at almost their breathing. He murmured a sentence that made me want to claw at myself. He said, Secretary Cruz, you're so hard to chase. Kyle, is he chasing me? I asked myself that question countless times, until the first ray of morning sunlight fell across my face and daybreak arrived. But I still hadn't slept. It was already breakfast time. All I could do was drag my dark circles into the living room. Kyle didn't look like he'd slept well either. He seemed drained. Elizabeth looked left, looked right, her expression basically saying, You two were really intense last night. I was like a mute eating bitter herbs, suffering with nowhere to speak it. After breakfast, Kyle drove me to work. I heard the sound of Elizabeth's account updating. Thinking of her expression just now, who knew what she'd imagine about me and Kyle this time? I clicked in with my alt account, planning to casually cast doubt on the truthfulness of her post. And then I saw she'd written, "Late at night, at the archery range, the big boss used archery as an excuse to create physical contact. In truth, he secretly drew closer to Secretary Cruz, peeling off his clothes layer by layer. On the clothes was Secretary Cruz's body heat, and a couple's mark the big boss had personally drawn on the clothes. After reading that, my face went red hot. Elizabeth's post was half true and half false. For a moment, I genuinely didn't even know which sentence to start refuting. Then all at once, inspiration struck. I decided to attack the easiest point to expose. I took my suit off and flipped it inside and out. Searching everywhere, there was no couple's mark like Elizabeth claimed. Huh? That's what I thought. How could Kyle possibly? A reflective glint from a cufflink caught my eye. I turned the cufflink over and saw the words "Love Cruz." It was real, Secretary Cruz. I jerked my head up in shock, just as Kyle opened the car door and got in, seeing me in a mess. His gaze darkened. Then he noticed me staring blankly at the cufflink, and instantly understood. "You finally found it," I stammered, incoherent. "Boss, you mean So, we've been wearing couple outfits this whole time. No wonder so many people at the company misunderstood." I forced a laugh. "Boss, this has to be a misunderstanding." "It isn't." Kyle twisted slightly toward me, his broad hand catching my chin. "It's not a misunderstanding. That is exactly what I'm thinking." Kyle's aggressively possessive gaze reflected in my pupils. My mind fell into chaos. "So, what do you think?" I had no thoughts. I shouldn't be in this car. I should be under it. I reached for the car door, but Kyle caught the movement. "Knew you'd try to run again," he pressed in. "After I played with you that night, you ran. Now, where are you trying to run to?" My eyes slowly widened. "You remember that night?" Kyle gave a soft, amused snort with a sensation. "That real? How could I forget? I thought you were drunk, and you didn't know it was. I can always tell Secretary Cruz from anyone else." Kyle drew closer and closer, his fingertips even pinching my neck until it turned red. He lowered his lashes when his eyes fell on my lips. "It felt like electricity. If you dodge, I'll take it as rejection. If you don't, that's you accepting me." Kyle's lips pressed onto mine. Wet, soft lips grinding against the center of my mouth, his tongue deftly prying past my teeth. Like he meant to tear me apart and swallow me whole today. I was a little more bent than yesterday. Feels like I'm kind of screwed. Before, Kyle and I had pure friendship though. That was something I believed unilaterally. Now, Kyle and I had lip friendship, still something I believed unilaterally. Secretary Cruz, come to my office. Kyle knocked my desk out of habit. I grabbed the organized documents and followed. My heart thudded wildly. Before, when Kyle called me, my heart didn't ripple at all. Now, when Kyle called me once, my heart went tingly and itchy and a little guilty, because he wasn't calling me to work. He was calling me to kiss. Sure enough, the moment I tried to hand him the documents, Kyle didn't even look. He tossed them onto the desk, wrapped an arm around my waist, and pulled me in. "Work can wait. Kiss me for a while first." Is this still my workaholic big boss? What kind of kiss addict get down from the big boss right now? When the deep kiss ended, my legs were weak. I stumbled out of the office, dizzy and dazed. During the meeting, Kyle was even faster and briefer than before, straight to the point. Done in a few lines, just as I was about to stand and leave. With everyone else, I felt something hook lightly at my calf. That touch, it was Kyle's dress shoe. I lifted my gaze and met Kyle's eyes. In an instant, sparks flew. We both knew exactly what it meant. I lagged a few steps behind, staying last. Kyle shut the door with me and the door together, and then started sucking the air out of my mouth. Afterward, my lips were swollen. Why is Kyle like a dog? In the reception room, Kyle was speaking with a client. My mind wandered off into space. I slacked for a bit, and suddenly there was a hand on the back of mine. Kyle answered the client with perfect seriousness while under the table he played with my fingers, so the big boss slacks off too. His way of slacking is just a bit unconventional. After we saw the client out, I went back, planning to tidy up the reception room, only to see Kyle lounging against the sofa with all the leisure in the world, patting his own thigh like I was possessed. I understood what he meant. No, I feel like I'm getting a bit addicted lately, and we're at the company still have to watch the impact. So after I deliberately dodged Kyle twice, he cornered me in the pantry. Kyle's Adam's apple bobbed. He looked like he was about to die of thirst. I'd just taken a sip of water. Seeing him like that, I hurriedly stepped aside to make room. Boss, if you're really thirsty, you can drink the water I just cooled. I didn't finish. Kyle skillfully pried open my teeth and drank all the water from my mouth. A few drops slipped out. He licked those clean too. He kissed me until the world spun. A little resigned, I thought, fine, if I can't dodge it, I'll just enjoy it. We kissed in the office, kissed in the conference room, kissed in the reception room, kissed in the pantry. The moment we made eye contact, we wanted to kiss like we developed a tacit understanding, damn it. Why do I have tacit understanding with the big boss about this of all things? Because Kyle and I had been too unrestrained lately. Elizabeth's fanfic posting frequency even increased. The comments all urged, the company forum has too many restrictions, hurry up and make a group chat. Post the restricted stuff. So Elizabeth made a group. I quietly memorized the group number and slipped in with my alt. At first, Elizabeth still posted the usual baby stroller level content. Later, everyone kept urging her to hit the fast lane. After repeated tempering, Elizabeth finally polished her technique, becoming a full-on seasoned driver for once. The group chat boiled over. I blew up too. Elizabeth is such a pure, sweet little girl. How does her brain contain so much filthy material? More importantly, everyone in the group was running wild. I got so mad I dragged Kyle straight into the group. Then I had mentioned the boss in the chat. This is rumor mongering. This is slander. My head was spinning, and I accidentally typed husband instead of boss. Husband, say something. The moment that line went out, the entire group fell silent. The big boss slowly, unhurriedly surfaced. Then I'll say a couple of words. Looking at the group chat, dead as a puddle of stagnant water, I smiled in triumph. Let's see if they still dare to talk nonsense after this. Kyle posted. I finished reading it. Very realistic. 1 second later, me. 3 seconds later, me. Holy shit, Kyle, you fucking. I was furious. Kyle started coaxing me. Money, flowers, cars. He even pulled out the property deed. I returned everything, went to the pantry, and drank water as a cover. Then someone bumped into me, knocking my shoulder crooked. Not only did he not apologize, he clicked his tongue in disgust and patted the spot where he'd hit me. Running into the big boss's kept. Boy, what bad luck. I'd never heard the term before, but after hanging around Kyle for so long, I understood instantly. The malice in his eyes wasn't even hidden. It felt like I'd taken 10,000 critical hits. I wanted to explain, but I didn't know what to say, because what he said wasn't exactly wrong. Kyle and I were worlds apart. When people saw us, wouldn't they naturally think in that direction? I forced myself to suppress the anxiety in my chest. Kyle and I still kissed in secret often. He often bought me clothes to wear. The company had basically become my personal runway for trying on outfits. He often took me out to check in at different food spots. Whenever there was something tasty, he put it in my bowl. I felt like I'd gained weight lately. He often sent me flowers whenever the thought struck, a bouquet would appear. The flowers were eye-catching, holding a bunch of roses, feeling everyone's gaze. I couldn't help thinking they were all imagining me and Kyle as that kind of relationship. But me, at the beginning, I only wanted to try dating Kyle. Maybe I should have tolerated Elizabeth writing fanfic. I shouldn't have joined that group, and I definitely shouldn't have, in a moment of anger, dragged Kyle in to testify, only to nail our relationship down even harder. Kyle's words were vague, ambiguous, dripping with insinuation. I knew Elizabeth and some people simply assumed Kyle and I were dating, but most people still thought I was for sale. Because of all this, I'd been in a gloomy mood lately. I even kept making mistakes at work. Kyle's first reaction wasn't to blame me. It was worry. Secretary Cruz, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? I shook my head. It's nothing. I couldn't describe how I felt. Maybe I was being too dramatic. We still went on dates like before, but we talked less. When he walked me to my door, Kyle held my hand and looked down, concern in his eyes, and drew. Can you talk things through with me? Don't overthink it alone. He was worried about me. His eyes held only me. I nodded. Okay. I went back into my pitch-dark room, tossing and turning. And in the middle of the night, a phone call jolted me upright in bed. It was my dad, Andrew. Your mom strained her lower back a couple days ago when she went out to the fields. She's in the hospital now, but she's past the danger stage. Don't worry. Listening to my father, my heart turned over with complicated emotions. My mom was sick, and I hadn't known it all because I was far away, unable to be by their side, unable to take care of them. And the words "went out to the fields" stabbed me especially hard. Only then did I realize what had been making me so miserable lately, because I'm a farmer's child. I'm the child my parents scraped and saved for, sunburnt and rain-soaked. To raise, I don't have the right to be gay. Kyle could ignore class and money, and just like me for who I am. But if you want to survive in society, you can't live on love alone. And besides, who knows how long Kyle will love me? Maybe I was just a toy for rich people. After all, Kyle and I had always belonged to two different worlds. The next morning, I walked into Kyle's office on my own initiative, sat on his lap, and kissed him until we were both breathless and unwilling to part. Kyle kissed me like he'd forgotten himself. "Secretary Cruz, why are you so proactive today?" I pulled out something I'd secretly bought from my pocket. Kyle's eyes widened. He scooped me up and shoved open a concealed door beside us. I was stunned. Since when was there a door there? Kyle seemed to hear my question in my head. Had someone install it. Kyle and I messed around in there all morning. We were drenched in sweat. And yet we couldn't get enough. Kyle's phone rang with countless calls, but nothing could extinguish the fire in him. In the end, we both collapsed onto the bed. After resting a bit, I found an excuse. "I'll order lunch." Kyle pressed me back down. "You rest. I'll order," while Kyle was out. I placed the resignation letter I'd prepared on his desk. Then I pushed the door open and left. From the big city back to a small mountain village, from an airplane to a tractor. Back to the land that gave birth to me and raised me. I stayed at the hospital to keep watch, and brought my parents home after they were discharged. The fields were in the middle of harvest season, already near the end. I figured I should share some of my mom's workload, so I followed my dad out to the fields. At first, not only were my pants soaked, I could barely move. Later, I finally managed to bend down and barely keep up, only to mix up the weeds and the rice stalks. My mom touched my forehead. "Did studying make this kid dumb? You used to work so fast when you were little," my dad asked too. "Andrew, doesn't your landscape design major teach you how to recognize rice?" I stood there, windblown and speechless, but my mom quickly laughed and explained for me. "City life is so convenient. You haven't cut rice in ages. Of course you forgot." My dad bent over, expertly threshing and bundling, and teased me as he worked. "City life treating you well? You went to college, found a job in the city, enjoy it. Don't end up like me and your mom, rotting away in these fields." My nose stung. "Rotting where? You raised me and put me through college with this. You're the best parents in the world." After a full day of cutting rice, my waist and back ached so badly I could barely straighten up. After dinner, I started counting my balance. When I was little, my biggest dream was to bring my parents to the city. Now I'd worked for 3 years, and I only had 500,000 saved. I couldn't even buy half an apartment in the city. Sigh. Someone like me, what right do I have to date? Especially with a man. That night I sent out a pile of resumes. The next day I went back to the fields only to get chased off by my mom. "Stop helping. You're increasing our workload. Your dad can finish this rice in 1 day. With you, it'll take at least 2. Go home and cook. That's enough." Looking at my mom sorting out the rice I'd mixed up yesterday, I couldn't argue. After steaming rice at home, with nothing else to do, I carried a basket up my back and went to the back mountain to look for Cordyceps stongchongshaka. No job, no income lately. I had to find a way to earn more money. At first I found nothing. Half the mountain had basically been picked clean. Later I could only find a few thin root strands. A few of the resumes I'd sent got replies. I was still screening options. Whenever I had time, I'd take a lap up the mountain. After a few days, I'd collected a dozen or so. Not a total loss. Days passed in a fog. Sometimes I couldn't make it down from the mountain, so I'd doze under a tree, waiting for Kyle to come into my dreams. That was all I wanted, just that. After resting enough, I patted the dust off my clothes and headed down the slope. Halfway down, I caught a glimpse of a tall figure standing on the jagged rocks. My heart jumped. I quickened my pace and rushed over, throwing myself into Kyle's arms. I hugged him tight and sighed. I didn't expect today to be a looping dream too. We just kissed on the hillside a moment ago, and now I see you standing here again. I rambled on. You know what? The scene is exactly the same as what I imagined what it would look like if you came to find me. As I spoke, grievance welled up. Kyle, why did you come so late to find me? Kyle's body carried a chill, like it had been swept by mountain wind. He held me, as if helpless against me. I'm sorry, I'm late. I cried pretty hard, soaking his clothes. Embarrassed, I wanted to apologize, but Kyle cupped my face and wiped away my tears, his brows knit. Why are you thinner? It's only been a few days. The weight I finally fed onto you is gone. I mumbled. It's been 13 days since I last kissed you. Kyle laughed under his breath and bit down hard on my lip. The wind is strong up here. I'm taking you down the mountain. This dream was a little long, and the details were so real. For the first time, I chattered endlessly to Kyle about what I'd been doing lately. Kyle kept asking, besides that, what else? You didn't miss me at all. It was too real. I lost focus for a second and slipped, falling onto a rock. Pain shot through my wrist. The scene in front of me was still the same. The dream hadn't ended. Wait, this wasn't a dream. I looked up in panic and crashed into Kyle's black eyes, half smiling. Secretary Cruz, so you dream about me every day. So humiliating, woo-woo. I'd originally thought that if I ever had the chance to see Kyle again, I'd act like a stranger passing him on the street. Instead, I was the one who threw myself at him. Honestly, I didn't want to bring Kyle back to my home. My house was a shabby brick and tile place converted from an old mud brick home. Nothing like the luxurious villa Kyle lived in. When I went to Kyle's house to pretend to be his boyfriend, I treated it as a life experience. But after I truly became Kyle's boyfriend, all I felt was embarrassment. Fortunately, Kyle didn't comment on my home at all. The moment he saw my parents, he stepped forward with unusual enthusiasm and introduced himself. Uncle, Annie, hello. I'm Andrews. Hearing that, I panicked and tried to cover Kyle's mouth only for Kyle to say calmly, I'm Andrew's boss. My hand froze in midair. I could only watch as my parents invited him in as a guest. Our Andrew rarely brings friends home, Boss Stevens. You came all this way, that can't have been easy. Your relationship with our Andrew must be very special, huh? Under the table, Kyle squeezed my hand and replied with a smile. It is special. Considering we'd already gone negative distance, it really was pretty special. I tried to find a chance to get Kyle to leave. But Kyle had been a boss for so many years. With only a fraction of his skill, he had my parents laughing and delighted. My mom even cooked personally, making several dishes for him. She kept urging, there aren't any hotels nearby. Stay the night, sleep in the same room as our Andrew. I was just about to refuse, but Kyle had already agreed. Thank you, Annie. I went feral, furious, and powerless, but the nearest hotel was 40 or 50 kilometers away. Kicking him out at night wasn't realistic. Kyle had a habit of showering before bed. I explained, boss, we don't have a bathroom. There's a river behind the village, we've bathed there since we were little. Kyle frowned, don't go anymore. Joy sprang up in my chest. You're disgusted. No. Kyle's lips curved. I'm afraid your hemorrhoids will flare up. He pulled a sheet of paper from his pocket. It was my resignation letter. At first, the resignation letter had been perfectly proper, written in official format. I'd said I felt I was not competent for the job and decided to resign. But that day, after we'd messed around all morning, in a fit of anger I'd written, you gave me hemorrhoids. Your technique is terrible. Let's break up. Kyle snorted coldly. Secretary Cruz. Whether you truly have hemorrhoids or not, I'll only know after I check. The moment he touched me, I turned into a fish meeting water. Kyle pinched my waist. So sensitive. My face burned. My parents are next door. Our walls are thin. Don't do this. Kyle pulled me into his arms in one swift motion, yanked the blanket over, and wrapped me up. Then sleep. He let me off that easily. I tried to wriggle out of his arms, but each time he only held me tighter. After that, I fell asleep. When I woke, Kyle wasn't there, and an inexplicable disappointment rose in my chest. Hearing laughter outside, I pushed the door open and saw Kyle with his pant legs rolled up, water in my mom's vegetable patch. My mom even praised him. Boss Stevens, you're so quick and capable. You don't look like a boss at all. You look like someone rushing to become a son-in-law. My heart lurched. I was about to rush over and cover for him, but Kyle spoke first. I am here to become a son-in-law, Annie. You can observe me more carefully. My good mood vanished, leaving only anger. I grabbed Kyle and pulled him away. When we reached a deserted ridge between fields, I flung his hand off. What nonsense are you telling my mom? You know there's a family next door. Their only son went out to work and brought back a man. His father broke his leg. Even now, the villagers still point and whisper, our village can't tolerate gay people. Boss, go back to your big city. I knew I looked twisted, ugly. But someone as ordinary as me, what right do I have to enjoy love? Kyle gave a quiet hum and spoke calmly. Have you ever considered that if this place can't accept you, you can come with me to a place that can accept us? He pinched my cheek and found there was no flesh to pinch anymore. Andrew, don't put so much pressure on yourself, okay? You're already so responsible. You can rely on me. I hated Kyle, and I liked Kyle so much. Why was he so good to me? For the next few days, I pretended to have forgotten that conversation. I kept my face cold and ignored Kyle no matter what he said or did. My parents looked at me, looked at Kyle, and said nothing. I carried the basket my mom had woven and went up the mountain to dig for cordyceps. I happened to run into a group of village guys going up the mountain. They looked experienced, so I followed. But I didn't stick to clothes, just trailed behind and picked up whatever they left. Everything was peaceful enough, But as we walked, I realized I might have gone deep into the mountains. I'd never been here before. I didn't know the way. Panic rose instinctively. My gut told me I should turn back immediately. So I followed the footprints back the way I'd come. At this pace, I should make it down before dark. But as I walked, fat raindrops smacked onto the tip of my nose. It was raining. The rain washed the footprints away. I was lost. At least I had enough sense to find a cave to shelter from the rain. I just hoped it wouldn't rain too hard, otherwise a mudslide would be bad. My damned crow mouth. I hadn't checked the weather forecast before leaving. Who knew the mountain would get such a downpour that it actually triggered a mudslide? I listened to the thunderous rumbling above, rocks tumbling. The light at the cave entrance grew smaller and smaller. It felt like I was about to be buried inside. Then a thin beam of flashlight light appeared at the entrance. A figure rushed in at the very last second. It was Kyle. He was wearing hiking gear. Soaked through. The moment he saw me, he hugged me, urgent and tight. "You're okay, thank God." I shoved him away, staring in disbelief. "Kyle, are you an idiot? There's a mudslide out there, a mudslide. Are you trying to get yourself killed?" Kyle froze. I didn't think that far. Tears seeped from the corners of my eyes as I pulled him into a hug. How could someone like him exist in this world? How did I happen to run into him? Making me love him, but unable to love him freely, unable to let go, either, in the few seconds we were arguing. The mudslide completely covered the cave entrance. Were we going to die? Kyle pulled out a lighter and lit a flame. In the flicker, he said something utterly useless. "Maybe we will, maybe we won't." Luckily, Kyle had brought a hiking backpack, full of emergency supplies, enough for us to live several days. He took off his clothes to dry and laid out sleeping bags. By candlelight, I saw his back crisscrossed with scars. "What is that?" Kyle answered lightly, as if it were nothing. "My dad did it." I told him before that I fell for a man. He was furious. He hit hard. I froze. Memories of visiting Kyle's home surged like a tide. Why his parents seemed to already know our relationship, and why the most old-fashioned, rigid uncle had acted like he'd completely given up. So Kyle had already come out long ago. And all of this was for me. Tears filled my eyes. Overcome with emotion, I hugged Kyle. "Kyle, if we make it out alive, I'll come out to my parents too." Kyle's lips curved, his intense gaze locking onto me. "You said it. No backing out." I nodded fiercely. And the next day, light shone in through the entrance at the front where the village head, and my parents, and Drew. There was a bit of a thunderstorm yesterday. A tree on the neighboring mountain even got split in half. We were scared you'd gone over there. "Good thing you're okay." Kyle insisted on going up the mountain like his life depended on it. No one could talk him out of it. "Kyle? My mom, this Kyle in front of you is a CEO with hundreds of billions. Mom, you really dare to call anyone anything?" Wait, my thoughts turned. "Wasn't it a mudslide last night?" My mom explained. "Not that dramatic, just a few small rocks. A couple trees knocked over, totally normal in the mountains." But Kyle was so anxious. He scared me half to death. I thought something terrible had happened. Kyle secretly squeezed my hand and murmured against my ear, "What you said yesterday, you can't take it back. I'm sorry. What if I'm chickening out now?" But under Kyle's relentless gaze, I surrendered. In the end, I gathered my courage and called out to my parents, "Mom, Dad, there's something I want to tell you, actually. I like men, no, rather than liking men. I like Kyle. I want to make things official with him." I lowered my head and waited quietly for my parents' verdict. They'd scraped and saved for over a decade to raise me, to put me through a top-tier 985 university. I failed their expectations. From now on, other than money, I wouldn't be able to give them anything. But the scolding I imagined never came. 10 seconds later, my mom said calmly, "Oh, all right then. Your dad and I will move into the small villa Kyle bought for us. We'll grow flowers, raise fish. You and Kyle can focus on earning money and supporting the household." I snapped my head up. "Huh?" I thought my mom had simply become more easygoing. Turns out Kyle's money offensive had crushed my parents into surrender. Money, gifts, property deeds. Wasn't this the life I'd always wanted to give them in the future? I covered my face. "Mom, Dad, you taught me since I was little that I can't get something for nothing." My mom rubbed the property deed while my dad counted the balance in his bank account. Both of them smiled so hard their eyes became thin slits. "And Drew, didn't you always say you'd work hard, earn money? Bring your dad and me to live in the city. Let us enjoy life. Now we're just moving into the house you were going to buy for us in the future early. Later, you work hard. If you want to repay it, just pay Kyle back. It's not a big deal." Somehow, it really didn't seem like a big deal, and unbelievably, my mom made a lot of sense. I couldn't afford it right now, but I definitely would someday. It was only a matter of time. After my dad finished counting, he patted my shoulder. Andrew, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Life is something you walk slowly, live slowly. Dad, maybe wipe that cheap grin off your face before you say that. Kyle and I took my parents back to the city. We didn't sell the house or the land back home, we just hired someone to look after things. My parents said it was to keep away. Out for the future. My mom added, still, Kyle really is good. He's got more masculine energy than you. Now my mom looked at Kyle through a beauty filter. How do I not have masculine energy? My mom teased. When you first came back, you cried every night. You think you're dad and I didn't know. I froze. Back then I'd been heartbroken. I really couldn't control it. My mom spoke earnestly, remembering that time. Your dad and I were so worried. We kept thinking you'd suffered some kind of grievance in the city. Every day we tried to comfort you, but nothing worked. Not until Kyle came, then you finally looked like you'd come back to life. Your dad and I aren't stupid. We knew something happened to you. If you didn't want to say it, we wouldn't ask. But Andrew, besides life and death, there's no problem in this world that can't be solved. The night Kyle came, he secretly told us what was really going on. We understood you're just too responsible. You put too much pressure on yourself. You were too anxious. Actually, we raised you and never asked for repayment. If we're doing well, if you can be happy, then we can go anywhere. Don't make things hard for yourself. Love whoever you want, man or woman. Doesn't matter. We'll always be your parents. I cried, moved, but then my mom shifted topics. Remembering something else. Oh, right, when Kyle came back then. I casually mentioned you were secretly crying at night. Kyle felt so sorry for you he wiped away tears too. To grown men, crying and sniffling, no backbone at all. Warmth settled in my chest. I hugged Kyle tightly. I'm sorry, I've always been a coward. I pretended to be straight, partly out of ignorance and partly out of fear. I was afraid of every bad possibility in the future. Thank you for always walking toward me. Kyle pinched my cheek, hooked the back of my neck, and whispered against my ear, if you really want to thank me, then let's try every single position from Elizabeth's fanfic. Fine. In the end, the rumors in the fanfic really did become reality.